Damon Martin, MMA fighting here with the legend himself, the former two-division UFC champion, now one of the top commentators in the entire sport, wrestling, everything else. Daniel Cormier, DC, what's going on?
Hanging out and just living life. Life, retired life.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I know the Gilroy team seems to be doing very, very good.
Yeah, we're scrapping, man. Our team did really well. We had a great Fargo tournament, which is the biggest high school tournament in the world. My kids absolutely crushed it. We're extremely proud of them. They did well. I'm a proud guy. Happy.
That's awesome. Well, DC, we got a lot to talk about. And obviously one of the main reasons we're talking today is the Olympic wrestling. It's about to kick off in 2 days. I think we have an incredible team representing the United States this year. I talked to Kyle Dake, right after the Olympic trials. I texted with Kyle Snyder. I'm super excited about this team. I want to get your thoughts. As a two-time Olympian yourself, what do you think about this squad we sent to Tokyo?
Our Olympic team, man, I think we've got a really good team. I believe that we're solid all the way up. I think Thomas Gilman at 125 is very good. I think he has a good style for international wrestling because he's so big and physical. And the way that he wrestles, right? He wrestles with a lot of pressure that he can walk guys to the edge. And that puts him in a lot of matches. Obviously, we don't have a guy wrestling at 130 in that 65 kilo range. Jordan Oliver went to the final qualifier, didn't qualify. So we don't have a guy there. But up at 74, I mean, you got to consider the man that beats the man a favorite to win a gold medal. But the reality is, dude's got his hands full. And I wrote down some notes because I didn't know if I was going to be doing it on Zoom. When you look at, all right, so you look at 74, right? Like, it's us, it's Chamizo, and it's the Russian, right? And the Russian, Sadikov, he's absurd, right? The guy is Sadikov, I don't know how to say his name exactly, but dude's absurd. But if you're Kyle Dake, right, who's beaten Chamizo before, wrestled him on a number of occasions at this point, and you beat the man. And Jordan Burroughs, you got to think that you got to be the man. And, Dake is a world champion, and in his world championship, it hasn't really been all that close, right? So if, obviously in a non-Olympic weight class, but if he's going to be the man at 74, we got to feel very confident. Up at 84 kilos, obviously David Taylor is tremendous, right? And then we have, Yazdani, and then Artur Nafanov is the Russian. And anytime the Russians around that weight, they're going to be very tough and talented, right? Every year, the Russians bring a team where they can compete at every single weight class. But when you look at DT and the Magic Man is what we call him, when you look at Dave Taylor, he's a kid that's won his entire life, Damon. I mean, you followed wrestling, and you've known David Taylor's journey, especially being from Ohio, right? You've seen him at every single level, and at every single level, he's won. And that's exactly what he's done at the world level. You can go back to him and Yazdani's match from the World Championship a couple of years ago. He just absolutely broke him in half, right? Broke the one of the best wrestlers in the entire world in half with his pace and his pressure. And it makes him one of, if not the absolute favorite. I feel better about David Taylor going into this Olympics than I think anyone else on our Olympic team. And that's saying a lot considering how talented this team really is. At 96 kilos, obviously we got our guy Snyder. Snyder is he was the man for a while. But in Sajalayev, you got probably the pump on number one wrestler in the world, right? We saw what he did to Kyle the last time they wrestled. And, we just got to hope that Kyle has gotten an idea with the training change, right? Obviously, he's at Penn State now, working out with Kyle Sanderson. Hopefully, those lessons have allowed for him to make the necessary changes that will allow for him to get past Sajalayev. But, I mean, they got 3 Olympic champions in this weight class, right? Because the Azerbaijani, Sharipov, is an Olympic champion himself. So it's not going to be easy for us to get to that. It's not going to be easy for us to get to the rubber match between Snyder and Sajalayev, but I believe that we can. And if Snyder has the tournament that we expect him to, we're looking at another guy that could potentially challenge for an Olympic gold medal. And lastly, we got my guy, Gable Steveson. And when you talk about Gable Steveson, you talk about a guy that truly has taken the world by storm, right? You're talking about a guy that 2 years ago, D, he wrestled against Nick Wazowski and lost. And honestly, at 21 years old, if the Olympics happened last summer as they were originally intended to, Damon. Hello?
Yep, I'm here.
You're so still. Like, I didn't realize.
I'm listening.
Yeah, dude. It's so when you talk about Nick Wazowski and Wazowski and Gable, last summer, if the Olympics happened, Gable might not have beat him. He had lost to him in the most recent competition. But then this year, he texts a guy that has multiple world medals to make the Olympic team. So you got to feel good about Gable Steveson. But he's got a ghoul in his weight class. He also has the Georgian. So I believe the top three is Georgia, USA, and Turkey, obviously. And again, the Russians always bring a tough guy at every single weight class. But I think that there are certain weights where I feel more confident about us, but I'm not uncertain at any. And I didn't mean to rant. I know you didn't intend for me to just go off on an entire Olympic preview in one shot, but it's excitement, and I can't wait. I think we're 3 days away from the competition getting started now. So we're truly on the cusp of what I feel is going to be one of our greatest Olympic performances.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, DC. You mentioned Kyle Snyder. That's my guy, Ohio State, obviously gold medalist the last Olympics, and he did it at such a young age, youngest American to ever win gold at the Olympics. To go in there and obviously to get it again. I mean, we there's a small list. Was it 4 guys who've ever won 2 gold medals in America in American wrestling history?
Yes.
To go back there is big enough, but to actually go back and win a second gold has been nearly impossible. And now you mentioned Sajalayev, number 1 guy in the world. He's a monster. He pinned Kyle the last time they met, and Kyle obviously had some struggles. Now I think going to Penn State was a good move, but I don't know. Like I got to be honest, I'm a little bit more nervous for this one.
But you should be, right? Because so it was a bit of a perfect storm when Kyle got him the first time, right? Like, so Kyle was able to get him in his first world championship up at 96 kilos, right? The guy wasn't completely settled into the weight class, which sucks to say for our guy. But then the second year, the guy's kind of thrown into the weight. And with all the skill, he proved very difficult. Listen, the way he pinned Kyle, that was so it was so unorthodox, right? He caught both hands and rolled across his own back and pinned him. Like, caught both of his arms and then tucked them in and got him on his back. So I believe that if Kyle can withstand the initial onslaught, right, the big points early, he can wrestle at such a high pace that I think he can wear down Sajalayev, but it's not going to be easy. I'm constantly in competition with the Russians in our gym about the Olympics and wrestling. And they're so confident in Sajalayev. They're so confident at 74 kilos that I don't understand what they see in those guys to not fear a Dake and a Snyder, because there's just so much confidence. I understand with Sajalayev, but Sadikov is the man, obviously, but Dake is the man too. So it's like, but they feel so confident in those guys. And then there's other guys that they are excited about, obviously. The 65 kilo guy is dude's world champion. The Russian, the guy is a 2-time defending world champion down at 57. So Gilman will have a tough field of battle there, but those guys bring the squad every time. But I truly do feel like we have one of our best Olympic teams that we've had in a long time. And I think they're going to do really well. And that's crazy to say, right? When we had Kyle Snyder win the Olympics in 2016 in Rio, but we also had multiple medalists. We had a great Olympic Games ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of crazy. And this year, obviously unfortunately, we didn't get to see Kyle and Jaden Cox. I think that would have been the finals, going into the Olympic trials. But unfortunately, the whole weight issue, I'm not going to rehash, some sore feelings for poor Jaden Cox. But Yeah, that guy's a beast. I mean, don't forget, he made his last Olympic team by beating Kyle Dake. I mean, that's how good this guy is. He ended up getting a bronze medal. He's a beast too. So obviously, but Kyle to beat Jordan to go into this year, but they, like I said, Chamizo's no joke. Obviously, you mentioned Sidakov. He's no joke. But I like your pick, David Taylor. I think he is kind of the one, I would say, sure thing. Nothing's a sure thing, obviously, but he's probably the closest to that we got. And I tell you what, I think if anything's going to backfire on Gable Steveson, I think it's going to be his inexperience in international competition. Yes. But in terms of talent, in terms of raw talent, that kid is a freaking beast.
He's a freak of nature. No big man should move like Gable Steveson moves. Like, let's just be honest. Like, 260 pounds should not be doing backflips after wrestling for 7 minutes against one of the best wrestlers in the world. It just all seems like it should not be possible, but he does it, man, and he makes it look easy. And his hand fighting and his offense is so crispy. Like, I just truly believe that he's going to get it done, but it ain't going to be easy, right? It's not going to be easy, and I hope that the Olympic trials experience doesn't give him a false sense of what this Olympic Games is going to look like. Because there's always somebody that you don't expect that comes out there and just over wrestles. I know Gable's going to have to deal with that.
Yeah. Although, like I said, what he did to Gwiazdowski at the trials, I was shocked. I mean, Gwiazdowski's a monster, and he manhandled him. I was shocked.
It wasn't close, man. It honestly was a non-competition. And if I'm Nick, I don't know what I have to do in order to get back to this kid, because it doesn't seem like Gwiz wants to retire, but it seems like the tide have changed so much that he's going to have problems.
Let me ask you this. This is a little off the subject in terms of wrestling, but we saw what Kyle Dake did to finally make the Olympic team. And I just literally just finished writing a story on him, kind of conquering that boogeyman of the division. Because I knew he had lost to Jordan a few times. I didn't realize he was 0-7 against Jordan leading into the trials, beat him, and now he's in the tournament. And obviously in the Olympics, again, I favor Kyle to win gold, but again, he does have a very tough division. But I'm kind of curious your opinion on Jordan Burroughs, because Jordan obviously hasn't retired, and I'm not saying he should. He hasn't made any decisions about that yet, but do you feel like this has been kind of the passing of the torch where Kyle Dake is going to be that guy now? And Kyle told me when I talked to him, he's fully planning on doing 2024. He wants to do another Olympic run. So I don't know. Is this the passing of the torch?
When you watch the matches, and Jordan had a really difficult time scoring on him. He had a really tough time, and he could not break the defenses of Dake. And it just seems like Dake has been building to this moment for so long that it did seem like a passing of the torch. But you don't count on a champion like Jordan Burroughs. And even if Jordan Burroughs can't beat Kyle Dake right now, going into the World Championships in the fall, like Jordan Burroughs would be our number one guy at 79 kilos, right? Like there's still opportunities out there for him to compete at a high level, because I know and I understand the mentality of Jordan Burroughs. And he's such a high level competitor that if he ain't walking away, it's only for the fact that he has more world titles to win. So maybe a passing of the torch at 74 kilos, but I do believe there are a lot of opportunity out there still for Jordan. Because think about it. For as sure as we are about David Taylor, Jordan wrestled David Taylor and lost like in a 4-4 match, right? Like they add 85 kilos. So the dude's is good. Jordan Burroughs is one of the greatest wrestlers we've ever seen. And we better be lucky that he's staying so that we get more opportunities to watch greatness in our lifetime, because that's exactly what Jordan Burroughs is.
So let me ask you this, DC. You're a gambling man. Let's say you got to put money on this. You're looking at our team this year. Who out of the people we talked about, those weight divisions, I think Jordan Oliver should have been in, but that's a whole other conversation we can have about qualifying. But neither here nor there. You look at the guys who made it in this year. Out of the guys who are representing the United States in the Olympics in 2020, I won't say gold medals because that's a tough one. But who do you think is going to medal? If you had to bet on it, out of the guys we got going, who would you bet on to win medals at this year's Olympics?
Okay. So, I'm true red, white, and blue. And I'm telling you this, not as just like an absurd comment. I truly believe Gilman is in the bronze medal match. I believe that. Dake wins it. I believe Taylor wins it. I believe Snyder is man, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think Snyder medals, but I don't know if he gets past Sajalayev, but I don't know. Don't know. But I think he medals. I honestly think we come out of there with a medal in every single weight class. I think we get 2 champions. I think we get a medal at every weight class, and I think we get 2 champions. I think it'll be a combination of Taylor and Dake or Taylor and Steveson. I do believe we have 2 champions come out of this thing.
I think Steveson, he's slipping under the radar a little bit because he doesn't have as much international competition. He didn't win a world title like Kyle Snyder did. Yeah, but I think Stevenson's like the guy. I think if I was going to pick one like upset, so to speak, I think Stevenson's the upset.
I do believe that, but I just think that Agul is really tough. The Turk is like really tough, and he's athletic, right? Like that's the thing. Like they have a few heavyweights out in the world now that are so gifted athletically that's the only pause I have. But I do have, after I left the trials, I thought there was no doubt anyone wrestles Gable Steveson even close. And I still believe that. I believe he will be the Olympic champion, but I do believe that Agul it's a hard match. And I just need to see where they match up because again, the only separation criteria is those world champions, and they are based on past experiences, which Gable doesn't have. So he may get one of those matches really early in the competition. So the seeding, I don't know if he will warrant a seed because he was a world champion in cadets and at the age groups, but not in the senior level.
Yeah. Let me ask this real quick, DC. We've talked a lot over the years about the development of college wrestling and then going into Olympic wrestling and obviously the availability of those guys and some girls, obviously, to come into mixed martial arts. And you've always been a champion for both sports. You said, listen, I love that wrestlers are coming into mixed martial arts, but we need great wrestlers to stay in college and stay to represent in the Olympics. Now, you've seen this new deal going on right now with the NCAA where there's these NIL deals, the name, image, likeness rights. Maybe you saw the deal the other day. Gable Steveson signed with Dave Martin, who represents Robbie Lawler, represents a lot of Luke Rockhold, obviously your teammate and friend. He's going to be doing NIL licensing for Gable Steveson. Now, obviously, we know not every wrestler is going to get this. We understand that's not going to be, and just like every college football player is not going to get it. But do you feel like that could be a game changer in terms of opportunity for some of these? Like you think of a Kyle Snyder coming back from the Olympics at 20 years old, what that guy could have probably made in his NIL deals at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that could be a bit of a game changer to make wrestlers have another outlet. You know what I mean?
When they're signing these deals, you're signing these deals for the NIL because they have to be limited to doing that for them. Like the management company I'm with, Zinkin Entertainment, signed Austin O'Connor, right? Austin O'Connor is the guy that won the NCAA tournament at 149 pounds from North Carolina. And he's going to be fantastic, but it's only for his name, image, likeness, because that's all you can do for these kids in the meantime. But I just believe that you have to have a true idea of what the landscape looks like, because you can promise these kids the world, right? And you see Nick Saban saying his quarterbacks can make $1 million. And that becomes a recruiting tool for Alabama, right? You start for Alabama, you can make all this money in the NIL, whereas other places you can't do that. You have to understand the landscape of wrestling and tell these young men and women a true idea of what they can and cannot make. And I think that is what people are going to have to navigate as they start to get into these deals. Because remember when this thing was first announced, all these young wrestlers had money and green in their eyes, and that's not the reality, right? People will offer them product. A guy like Gable Steveson can go and get some money, especially if this Olympic Games goes in the way that you hope that it goes. But there's just not this boatloads of money out there for these young wrestlers. I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to be negative. I want to be realistic. So if you have a realistic expectation, you can go make a little bit of money in this NIL. But just make sure you know what your value is, especially as you're still in the sport. It doesn't get the coverage that a lot of different sports get. These basketball players, Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham, the kids that just got drafted tonight, they're going to be millionaires before they even leave college now. But that isn't the case for every single sport.
Yeah, I mean, think about the battle we just went through to see Stanford wrestling. They had a freaking NCAA champion, and they were literally going to dump the program. I mean, that was insane. Thankfully, they saved it. Thankfully they saved it, but still, no guarantee at that point. No guarantee.
But that's what that tells you to how much they undervalue these young athletes, these wrestlers, who bring so much to these universities. So understand the landscape, set realistic expectations, and then have somebody go get that for you.
Yeah. Last thing, DC, before I get you out here, there's been a lot of talk this week. You're one of the few people we can talk to about this, and I feel like get a real answer. You are a two-time Olympian in your own right. You've seen this story going on around about Simone Biles. She had to drop out of the Olympics or the team competition. We don't know what she's going to do with the individuals next week, but she's dropped out and talked about mental health. Now, there's been a lot of chatter online. Now, we've seen, I'm sure you saw what Michael Bisping said, and my feeling about Michael. I love Michael.
I didn't know what he said. I didn't know what did he say?
More or less said quitters don't win, that kind of thing. Like kind of criticized her a little bit. Now he did kind of backtrack and say he didn't know the whole story, but kind of a little bit of that mentality. Now you saw maybe Ronda Rousey, she came out and said, listen, you don't know what that's like, all the credit in the world for Simone Biles, stepping out and doing what she did, basically applauding her for standing up for her mental health. As a guy who's been there, DC, you've been there, Olympic pressure and pressure of UFC. I mean, you've been in championship, this pressure. What is your opinion on the whole Simone Biles situation?
I truly believe that it's such a difficult thing because in a sport like wrestling, you don't compete. It's like, oh, you kind of just, just quit. But I believe that when you're twisting in the air, right? Like jumping and flying through the air, a mishap is so damaging or could be so damaging, you have to really reconsider. I think when I look through all this, right, because I've been on a group message with my friends and it's been back and forth, everybody with their opinion. The reality is the only person that has to deal with the opinion and the fallout of this will be Simone Biles, because I think that when you become the greatest of all time, that comes with a pressure. And sometimes that pressure becomes so big, you can't handle it. When I look back on everybody and their opinions, I think the best opinion on it that I've seen, and I'm going to read it word for word, was, no lie, my man Deron Wynn. It's very weird, but it was my man Deron Wynn. He wrote, I thought he had such a great way of saying it. I don't know who wrote this for him or whatever. He said, do I agree with Simone? Not entirely. Do I understand? Entirely. Will I care about it in a week? Probably not. Should you? Probably not. But will it still be affecting her? 100%. Because ultimately that decision will lie with Simone much longer than it is the rest of us. I mean, we're 2 days later now, right? And the young gal from Stanford just won the gold medal. And honestly, I'm not thinking about Simone Biles and her withdrawing from the Olympics as much. It's like on to the next one, right? As the news cycle moves and the news cycle flips, we kind of move on as the people that consume that news. Who's not moving on is Simone Biles. And as she gets further and further away from the competition, that decision is going to have to stay with her. So we can't judge her decision. We are in no position to say she's right or wrong, because ultimately she's the one that's going to have to live with it long after we've all moved on to the next football season, the next basketball season, next baseball season, and everything else. She'll still deal with her not being mentally in a place where she can compete. And that's what it is, so I don't have as much an opinion on it as you would think, because the reality is it's not my decision.
Yeah. Well, and I've had this conversation with Kayla Harrison before. She talked about when she transitioned MMA, she's like, there's pressure in MMA. Don't get me wrong. She said Olympic pressure is a whole other animal. You compete for something to get there to that 1-4. You got 4 years. You wait 4 years. You break your back, and you're not making a lot of money. You're doing all these kind of things just to get to that one moment. And she's like, that kind of pressure is it's unmatched.
for 3 years, people don't care. And then all of a sudden, you're like one of the biggest stars in the world, right? So it's like you take these people that live in, they're pretty anonymous in their day-to-day lives, right? Simone Biles obviously is different, right? Because she's such a but the pressure that she's dealing with today, opposed to what she's dealt with over the last 4 years since 2016, being a gymnastics world champion is a big deal. But she can't, for the next year, she won't be able to go anywhere. And that is a different type of pressure that she's dealing with. But again, only Simone will deal with the decision. And I think that's up to us to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. DC, you said obviously you have to argue with the guys, the Russian guys at AKA. Did you and Khabib make a bet? Like, I know he's the Sajalayev guy. It's funny. I did a story like a year or two ago about Dagestan, like how it's a hotbed for wrestling and MMA. And the guy told me he'd gone to visit Dagestan. He told me, he's like, there's two people. He's like, they're icons. Khabib is like the biggest, of course. He's like the legend of Dagestan. But he's like, if you can't say Sajalayev the right way, people will make fun of you in Dagestan because he is such a star there. So I assume Khabib is a big Sajalayev.
Yes, he is.
Are you willing to bet on Snyder? Come on now, you got to bet for our guy.
Of course I would always bet. Like if you're betting USA versus anybody, I'm betting you. Do I feel secure in the bet? No, not as secure as I would like to be. But yes, I do make the bet every single time. Every time.
I love it. DC, thank you for doing this. I'm so excited about the Olympic Games when they start in a couple of days. I appreciate you doing this. Keep up the good work doing the commentary, man. You know, I'm always watching. I love hearing you out there. And thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
You're the man, Damon. Thank you.